Coming up, the fear factor in state politics.
The people of Alaska are giving up a tremendous amount if this bill passes.
We have burned through over $10 billion worth of savings.
What is often most important is what you fear or even hate the most.
Ahead, the paralysis of fear. What happens if lawmakers fail to make a deal on a budget fix?
Sponsorship for Frontiers with Rhonda McBride is provided by your local Alaska Toyota dealers. Toyota, let's go places. Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers. With challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come. Bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to our program as we once again bravely venture into Alaska's fiscal frontiers. Now, I'm about to use the B word here, budget, a word that can make your eyes glaze over. But at the state capitol, you'll find plenty of wild-eyed looks as lawmakers draw their battle lines. Even though time is running out this session, the legislature has yet to cut a deal on how to close Alaska's $3 billion budget gap. And if lawmakers don't come up with a solution this session, it will blow yet another huge hole in Alaska's savings. So how much time do lawmakers have before the state blows through all of its savings? Well, budget experts say our state has 1, maybe 2 years at best before our money runs out. And that makes it harder to find common ground.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
One of the few acts of legislative unity in Juneau.
This is called the Permanent Fund Protection Act. There's no protection of anybody's dividends. None at all. In fact, you're taking it away.
Mr. President, some people are saying that it's smoke and mirrors. It is not.
We really hope that the most important question is, what do you most love or want?
But in today's politics,
what is often most important is what you fear or even hate the most.
Cliff Groh has been a lifetime student of Alaska politics and says our fears are what divide us.
And I sometimes expand this to as many as 6 groups of Alaskans, organized, remember, by the principle of what do you fear the most?
Fears that might be better understood at a place that specializes in scary stuff. Though it's a little early for Halloween, the staff here was ready to oblige. One of the biggest fears for some, more budget cuts, and the impact on basic services like public safety and schools, as well as community programs that already struggle with bare bones budgets, while others see state spending as a monster still out of control. Another fear that looms large, tapping permanent fund earnings, which would reduce the size of our dividend checks. A move that would hit rural Alaska the hardest because jobs are scarce and costs are high. Others fear the return of income taxes, much more than they do the loss of a dividend check. What group of Alaskans fear the income tax the most?
The poster child for that might be an orthopedic surgeon who might make between $1 million a year and $3 million a year and might say, I would give away every permanent fund dividend I would ever get in my life as long as we don't have a progressive income tax brought back to Alaska.
There is also the fear oil tax increases could scare producers away from development and result in a loss of jobs and wealth that flows through the Alaskan economy.
Oh no! And then finally there's a group of Alaskans, it seems to me, which is most concerned about a deeper recession here in the state, particularly one that was exacerbated by a legislative action or inaction.
It doesn't really matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. These fears cut across party lines.
Another important question, and this is a tricky one a lot of people don't like, is how long do you intend to live in Alaska? Some people who think they're going to be gone soon, they very much don't want to have the state of Alaska impose costs on them now to make Alaska a better place in the future that they won't believe that they're going to enjoy.
How influential is that group of people that plan to leave at some point in the future?
They have more clout than their numbers suggest because they often tend to be richer.
Give me the scenario that you fear the most.
It was actually in the cockpit of an airplane, and that people were pointing guns at each other in the cockpit of an airplane where there was no one at the controls while we headed toward the mountain.
As President Roosevelt once said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Another challenge, Cliff Gross says, gone are the days of deal makers. He says today's politicians are more likely to be ideologues who vow not to compromise, but there are some who choose hope over fear. Up next, a big gamble for an Anchorage business.
Last summer, I was debating, frankly, whether to sell it or to stay with it.
Why the owner of a Midtown art gallery decided to expand, despite fears about Anchorage's economy.
Spring has finally sprung.
Hurry up, let's go.
Time to get busy, get doing.
Dad, can I use this one?
Time for a new RAV4. The 2017 RAV4, the right choice for any adventure. Now with Toyota Safety Sense. Get yours today with these limited time savings.
Dad, I think I got one.
The Toyota Spring event is going on now. See your Alaska Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places.
Since 2007, Shoot for the Cure Alaska has raised more than $1 million to fund research, raise awareness, and support cystic fibrosis patients in Alaska. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder that attacks children, causing damage to the respiratory system and chronic digestive problems. It used to be a fatal disease, but thanks to better research and treatment, patients are living longer. Many Alaskans fight CF every day. Because of generous donors like you, Shoot for the Cure Alaska is there when CF families need help. Sign up for our Shoot for the Cure Sporting Clays event at the Birchwood Range on May 12th. Be a Shoot for the Cure corporate sponsor. Attend our banquet on May 11th or just donate an auction item. You can even share your PFD by choosing Shoot for the Cure when you pick, click, give. Help us make CF stand for Cure Found. Every dollar makes a difference to a CF patient here in Alaska. Learn more and donate at alaskacfshoot.org.
We are artists. We are athletes. We are many things, but drugs do not define us. It's a fact. 85% of Alaska Native and American Indian people don't use illegal drugs. For more resources on building a healthy life, visit anthc.org/weare.
3 years ago, oil prices were more than $100 a barrel, and now they're about half that much. As a result, there are fewer jobs today in Alaska and less cash to circulate in the economy. But that hasn't stopped one art gallery in Midtown from expanding. It's an uphill battle for businesses that depend on upscale buyers. Yet, the Two Friends Gallery hopes to succeed against the odds.
Yeah, that's good.
Despite the fact that other stores have been hit hard by the fallout from low oil prices.
Does that look good? Yeah, this is perfect.
Last summer, Jackie Ertischek
Then we can put her fascinator.
considered selling her business, but she loves it so much it was hard to let go.
Is she beautiful or what? Yes.
But after the Artique store downtown folded and sold her its storehouse of treasured Alaskan art, and the flypaper next door closed, which would give her room to expand, she decided to go for it.
It was like ducky, 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 whoop, ducky. Ducks all lined up, and I decided to expand.
Jackie admits her decision seems risky.
We all have our little craziness. Talking to the mannequins is one of mine.
But at least the mannequins don't talk back.
I talk to myself too, and then I get very irritated when somebody interrupts my conversation.
In other words, Jackie listens to her gut.
I know what I feel.
And Jackie feels she can survive if she targets customers with smaller paychecks.
I think no matter what, people buy gifts for other people. I think no matter what, people buy clothes for themselves. Are they buying as much artwork? Not really, but that's okay.
That's because others depend upon her, especially Native artists who have fewer and fewer outlets to sell their work. And Jackie worries the legislature's inability to solve the state's budget crisis could make things worse for everyone.
How could you not be up here and not be afraid of that happening? But the thing is, they aren't doing anything.
So Jackie says she has faith Alaskans will eventually step up and force the legislature to do what's right for the state.
I've never been able to explain what it is about Alaska that just gets in your blood and you'll fight for.
Jackie's betting on Alaskans to do their part in this fight, but with so little time left for lawmakers to act, that's as big of a gamble as it is to grow her business in a climate that's far from ideal.
There he goes.
And not just business owners, but Alaskans across our state are wondering why lawmakers can't just make a deal. Well, part of the problem is it's like that old Monty Hall game show, let's make a deal. There are so many doors to choose from and we don't know what's behind them. But we've got two longtime observers of Alaska politics here to help us understand what it takes to make a deal, Larry Pursley and Christopher Clark, who is coming to us from our sister station in Juneau, KTVA. Well, one of the things that we have right in front of us is this great big budget axe and, of course, a skull reminiscent of Hamlet. And so in our case, it's to reach a deal or to not reach a deal. That is the question. What is the problem in reaching a deal?
Well, the problem is Alaskans have lived tax-free for 2 generations. From a state tax perspective, free dividends for 2 generations. The legislature in many years has had a lot of money to spend to buy the public's happiness. We've got 700 and some thousand Alaskans and about that many opinions. It's tough.
Chris.
Alaskans are divided on how to fix this, and the legislature represents that division. That's why it's not easy coming together with something that we can agree on, or at least a majority of us can agree on.
Well, you guys remember that old Monty Hall show, right?
More so than I remember Shakespeare.
Well, we're going to sort of take a page from Monty Hall and show you different doors and have you explain the pros and cons. So the first door, door number 1, tap permanent fund earnings, not the body of the fund, just the earnings.
Well, the permanent fund was established in 1976 to save some of the oil and gas money for when we needed it. I think the majority of the legislature agrees we do need it now. There's no way to fill that $3 billion hole with just taxes or dreaming of new oil or budget cuts. It's time to start using some of the earnings of the permanent fund. The question is how much of the earnings go to public services and how much goes to the dividend?
Chris.
Permanent fund earnings are the biggest pot for the biggest solution here. With a $2.8 billion deficit, this is the best place to go. And there are no other plans out there that can equal this. You can't cut your way. You can't throw other taxes in there. The downside, of course, is that there are people who believe that the permanent fund is really nothing more than a dividend machine, that the earnings are for dividends and dividends alone, and you should figure out how to pay your budget with other money sources. That's the nut of the conflict.
Well, one of the things that they're saying is that this is the permanent fund protection plan. Do you buy that?
Look, everyone comes up with a cute name for legislation. The Alaska legislature is no different on that. It's a protection plan in that if you don't do anything, spend down all your savings, spend into your reserves, you could jeopardize the actual dividend. Better to have a structured plan, a managed plan, a path forward so you can figure out how much for the next 50 years of the permanent fund goes to public services, how much goes to dividend. In that sense, it does protect the dividend.
So we want to take a look at door number 2. Do we want an income or a sales tax? Boy, this is causing a lot of heartburn.
Well, a lot of Alaskans want neither, so they don't want to pick the door, but I don't think it adds up. The math adds up to $3 billion without taking an income or a sales tax. Other states have them, hasn't killed them. Alaska had an income tax from 1949 to 1979. There are more than 100 cities and boroughs with a sales tax. So this is a great political battle that we have not seen. We're not there yet, I don't think.
Chris.
Larry's right. If you want to have a complete, balanced plan, then you need to have something like an income tax or a state sales tax to do so. The difference is that in 1949, we had no permanent fund earnings, so we had to do it. We were forced to do it, and that same sense of urgency does not exist today in 2017 because you have that big pot of money right there from permanent fund earnings. So this is a harder sell to make. Always it's a harder sell to make, but especially now with the permanent fund sitting out there as the largest solution to this problem.
So let's go to door number 3. Well, we hear this mantra steadily: cut the budget, cut the budget. Can we avoid tapping the PFD earnings or imposing an income tax if we just keep cutting?
Well, it depends what services you like and how you want to pay for them. Look, you cannot cut your way, is the cliche. You cannot cut your way to solving a $3 billion gap. It just, there isn't that much money there. Politically, you're going to have to probably cut some more services, but that's starting to hurt the economy, and it's certainly starting to hurt the public, and that's a balancing act that probably will continue forever. I mean, the public, how do you know what's the right size?
So, Chris, this is pretty divisive, isn't it? Because everybody's budget cut is not the same for another person.
Exactly, and often when you hear those people who are saying cut the budget, ask them where and where are your votes for it. More often than not, they'll give you this glittering generality, but they won't specify where, and the reason they don't is because they know wherever you're going to cut, it's going to be unpopular. If you've got places to cut, show us where to cut. And indeed, we need to restrain spending, but if you're going to make some big cuts, show us where and show me where your votes are to do that.
Show us the money, right? Well, speaking of money, there's oil tax reform out on the table. So let's look at that door number 4. So that consists of 2 possibilities. You can raise oil taxes or you can lower tax credits. So what are the pros and cons of this option?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure, depending what side you are, people would agree on the word reform. Some would say more onerous oil taxes, and others would say it's a tax holiday and the industry's getting away easy. Look, Alaska has debated oil taxes ever since the 1970s in Prudhoe Bay, so it's going to be part of our life. Is there $3 billion there to fill the gap? No. Politically, are you going to have to do something? They've already scaled back the Cook Inlet tax credits. Now the debate is on North Slope tax credits, separate from the actual tax rate. I think that is going to be one of the big end-of-session battles between the House and Senate.
It always is. Why is that, Chris?
It's because it's always a big deal. It has everything to do with what the future development is and the reaction that it has. I prefer to use the word oil tax changes instead of reform because reform is a loaded word. Historically, we have seen that oil tax changes have occurred in election years. This is not an election year, but last year we had House Bill 247 that Larry spoke about that dealt mostly with Cook Inlet tax credits. And in 2006, we had Governor Frank Murkowski's net profits production tax. So it can happen in a in an election year. So I don't see it happening this year because it's just too darn difficult to do it politically. Furthermore, even the Senate is acknowledging that some changes need to be done. And the Legislative Budget Audit Committee is looking to hire some consultants to do that. That's driven by a Senate chairman, so it indicates that even the Senate's ready to look at it, maybe not now.
Well, this is always driven by an equity question, the debate. The people that don't want the PFD earnings tap say, you know, we're giving everything. You know, to be equitable, the oil industry has to give too.
They do, and I think it's emotional to a lot of Alaskans. Look, a lot of Alaskans realize the state really got stinking rich off oil for 40 years, but they think the oil industry got filthy stinking rich off the oil, and we want some of that back. It's a visceral emotion, and sometimes the facts just get buried in that.
Does that get in the way, Chris, of making a deal?
It does, but as we've seen historically, when you focus just on oil tax changes alone, that occupies a lot of time, and therefore it sucks the air out of the room and makes it harder for other things like a permanent fund payout plan to get the attention it deserves in order to pass. It's just so latent with emotions, going back to the Exxon Valdez oil spill, back to other fights about whether the oil companies got more than they should, whether we got more than we should. It gets back to what is a fair share, and I don't think we've ever seen a resolution on that question alone, and I don't think we'll ever see one on that. that.
So, okay, we got one more door here, door number 5. So these are other taxes, fuel taxes, school taxes, maybe a lottery, and I should probably add marijuana in there because people think that that'll come and save us.
Sure, but this isn't a door. This is a little view window. Those little side windows you used to have in your car. Look, Alaska hasn't raised motor fuel taxes in half a century. Even if you go with the governor's proposal this year, that's $40 million. Most revenue estimates on a lottery say you'd raise even less. There just aren't that many people here. So maybe motor fuel taxes pass this year, but most people look at this stuff and say it doesn't really help solve the problem.
Chris.
Larry's right. Of all the doors, this is the smallest door, but it's one of the more interesting doors because it illustrates what Alaskans might support. They will support increased taxes or new taxes if it's for something that they like roads, better roads being fixed and maintained. If we're going to increase motor fuel taxes, then the Senate, for example, is in their budget are assuming that we will, and that it'll be used mostly for road maintenance and other transportation stuff. So when you link it to something that Alaskans want, like education or transportation, it has a better chance of succeeding, but it doesn't, it's a small door. It's not really filling up the big hole that we have, and we have a big hole.
So Chris, I guess, and Larry, how do we get to a deal? What's politically possible?
I think some sort of permanent fund payout plan is possible this year, this session. I think motor fuel tax is possible this session. I think income versus sales tax or no tax and oil taxes. I wouldn't bet on those this session. There's just too much politics.
Chris.
But eventually they got to come.
And I agree with Larry on everything, that that's just too much on one plate. Remember, it's easy to propose. I mean, it's easy to oppose than it is to propose. So it's easier to defeat something than it is to pass something. So I think that's why we're going to see a permanent fund payout plan. That alone is going to be hard enough to get done. Increase in motor fuel tax, probably. Income tax is probably going to have to wait. And certainly oil tax changes will probably have to wait.
So Chris, one question for you is, we have had predictions that we're going to see an extended session. You think we're going to have marathon special sessions this year?
Maybe, maybe not. We're certainly going past day 90 because they're acting like they're going past day 90. House committees next week are hearing House bills. Senate committees are still hearing Senate bills. If they wanted to get done by 90 days, Senate committees should be hearing House bills and House committees should be hearing Senate bills. They're not doing that. So there's an assumption we are definitely going past day 90, but we still may get it done by day 121. Stay tuned.
All right. We have to stay tuned. We have no choice. Thank you, Larry Pursley and Christopher Clark. Well, the end of the 90-day session is kind of one of those rites of spring that we have no choice but to endure. But the Jamai Festival in Bethel is a different story. How dancing and drumming awaken the spirit from the long, dark days of winter.
I just want cremation.
Cremation specialist in Alaska.
Can I have a service before cremation?
Our staff is committed to serving your needs.
I just want something basic. The simpler, the better.
Specializing in simple cremations. Whatever your reasons are for choosing cremation, call Cremation Society of Alaska, 277-2777, or in the Valley, 373-8627, and on the web at alaskacremation.com.
You don't have to live in a big city to be a foster parent. You don't have to have a big house, a fancy car, or lots of money. What you need is a home. What you need is a heart that can open to a child who needs you. Won't you become a foster parent today? A child is waiting. Call 1-800-478-7307.
So, the local paper wants to charge you to read their news online. There's a better way. There's a better source for your news. Go to KTVA.com. News, sports, weather, it's all here. Where you want it, when you want it. No charge. Hey, it's the internet. You can even get our newsletter delivered every day on us. Read it, watch it, share it, and keep the change. KTVA.com, where the free press is still free.
What is health? It's more than a number on the scale. It's in the water we drink and the air we breathe. It's reflected in our jobs, our climate, and our community. Our health is holistic. Our health care should be the same. At ANTHC, we're providing clean water and sanitation around the state. We're working in partnership to make homes safer, healthcare treatment smarter, and fulfill our vision that Alaska Native people are the healthiest people in the world.
In the Yupik language, the word Jamai means welcome, the perfect name for a dance festival in Bethel that welcomes the spring and all those like photojournalist Beth Peak who come to watch and feel the heartbeat of the culture.
There's excitement in the air. Time of celebration. It's to keep our culture alive. Young people are dancing and the elders are dancing and the young people are watching and learning the songs that the elders are singing. Once a young person dances, he or she will never forget that moment when they get up on the stage and then they're looking at the elders out there enjoying themselves.
Gather around family members, make them laugh. It's just so fun dancing for our culture.
For the elders, it's pride. Whoa, my grandchild is dancing, you know, like I used to dance. Alaskans are unique. For us, we take pride in that uniqueness. Encourage those villages or tribes and people that are almost forgetting about their dancing, for them to revitalize that and come in front of Jamai and dance.
Years ago, when a group of Alutiiq dancers from Kodiak Island performed at the Jamai Dance Festival, it sparked a desire to hold a regional dance festival all on their own, a dream at long last realized in Old Harbor, where we'll take you next week. We leave you now with some sights and sounds from that festival. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.